Good evening, Patriots. Welcome back. Thanks for joining me again tonight. I want to let you know how much I appreciate the views and support on the previous video that I titled Who is Q? I received a great deal of praise and compliments on Instagram, Twitter, and of course the YouTube video itself. There really aren't enough words to truly express my gratitude, but as a reminder, you are what matters and you are the reason I'm here. My hope is to continue this work, gain more and more reach with people, bringing truth and life skills to as many as possible, so as to help anyone who will have ears to hear and eyes to see. Praise God for you all. If you have not subscribed and or selected to receive notifications of new videos, please do so now. Also, click the like button and share with anyone you know. And with that said, on to today's topic, which is how equality will destroy a free nation. I've spent several days reading, listening to, and learning about Yuri Bezmenov, aka Thomas Schumann. And let me tell you that I have learned a lot. My main interest was listening to and understanding the tactics of subversion to defeat an enemy. Yuri was a defector from Russia, and his interview with G. Edward Griffin and presentation of information was conducted and presented in 1984. So while this is not new information, and truly it goes back to Sun Tzu, it very much applies to what we see happening today. I will go through what he had to say about subversion tactics, and I will make comparisons to today. And let me ask you if this sounds familiar. This is a list of 7 rules, and I'll explain where it came from on the other side. Number 7, cause a breakdown of the old moral virtues of honesty, sobriety, self-restraint, faith in the pledged word. Number 6, incite unnecessary strikes in vital industries, encourage civil disorders, and foster a lenient and soft attitude on the part of government towards such disorders. Number 5, by encouraging government extravagances, destroy its credit, produce years of inflation with rising prices and general discontent. Number 4, always preach democracy, but seize power as fast and as ruthlessly as possible. Number 3, destroy people's faith in their national leaders by holding the latter up for contempt, ridicule, and disgrace. Number 2, divide the people into hostile groups by constantly harping on controversial issues of absolutely no importance. And number 1, corrupt the young, get them interested in sex, take them away from religion, make them superficial and enfeebled. I knew this would sound familiar to you. This comes from the young revolutionaries of the Communist Party titled Rules of Revolution. One thing to keep in mind is that the agenda tends to consist of a convergence between all systems of the world, which is currently globalism. And it really doesn't matter which system you're living under anymore. Anyone can be taken over at any time in any nation without ever realizing it was happening at all. People think that this can't happen to us in the United States, and I will tell you that not only can it happen, it has been happening for many years. I believe Democrats have been working with George Soros and many others for decades to subvert American culture, destabilize America's institutions, and overrun the U.S. government with Marxist, communist, leftist infiltrators who despise liberty and the Constitution. And you may already know this and agree, but continue with me anyway, as I think this information is important for all to hear, and there is always something new to be learned. Interestingly, a system cannot collapse by itself when the system is nourishing its own agenda to socialism, which it has been. Therefore, it must be made to collapse by getting the people to destroy the system themselves. Enter the use of subversion. Subversion is 85% of how the elite globalists have tried to destroy their enemy, the Americans. Espionage only occupies 10 to 15% of time, money, and manpower activities of the globalists. And according to Western laws, subversion is not even a crime. Subverters are often professors, exchange students, diplomats, actors, etc., and subversion is a two-way activity. The enemy must be willing to be subverted. Sun Tzu said, "The supreme art of war is to subdue your enemy without fighting." That is to say, subvert the enemy until the perception of the reality is so screwed up to the extent that he does not perceive you as an enemy at all, but as an alternative, and even a desirable alternative. There are 4 stages of subversion, and this begins with demoralization of a nation. Demoralization is just what it sounds like, and it is implemented for usually around 15 to 20 years. This is the length of time needed because it is the sufficient amount of time to educate or indoctrinate one generation of students, one lifetime as a student dedicated to shaping knowledge and personality. This is also the length of time it would take to turn this kind of thinking around, unfortunately. And so now, during demoralization, infiltration, propaganda, and propagation is infiltrated into various areas where public opinion is formed and shaped. That is religion, education, social life, administration, law enforcement, military, and labor-employer relations. Even in a free, democratic society, there will always be those who will oppose the system. They may be psychotic, they may just be incredibly rebellious, they may be indoctrinated by family, but do not doubt for a moment that there are not agents of a foreign nation that are bought and subverted and recruited to oppose the democratic system. They are put in to turn upside down everything we know and hold to be truth as a free nation. First, they infiltrate religion by distracting with many other new religions, dogmas, ways of believing, basically non-related faiths. Introduce and normalize sexual deviant behavior. They start sex cults and warning this is X-rated, but things like NXIVM, BDSM, fetish, furries, 50 Shades of Grey, tops, bottoms, bestiality, threesomes, black stables, cuck and bull, and hot wife, interracial, and many, many more. They aim to destroy and ridicule religions and make it uncool and outdated. In the education system, they infiltrate teaching that distracts from anything pragmatic. No math, no physics, no chemistry. Instead, they will teach anything else. Perhaps the history of urban warfare, race relations, sexuality, the environment, and being green. Anything that will take people away from pragmatic teaching. Think the Common Core that was the anti-education indoctrination / obedience scheme from Obama. The main methods of the New World Order demoralization of American education are as follows. 1. Student exchanges, whereby American students and professors go to training camps, like perhaps Broward, Florida, and are exposed to ideological brainwashing, sometimes lacking the proper education that would allow them to assess the information that they receive objectively. Number 2 would be flooding of campus bookstores with Marxist and socialist literature published both in America and elsewhere by domestic fellow travelers. Number 3 would be international seminars and conferences with New World Order participation, where NWO propaganda seldom is balanced by opposing viewpoints. Number 4, infiltration of schools and universities by radical leftists and simply disturbers, often functioning unknowingly under the direct guidance of New World Order agents of influence. Number 5, establishing numerous student newspapers and magazines staffed with communists and sympathizers. Number 6, organizing study groups and circles for dissemination of New World Order propaganda and communist ideology. The eventual result is a very predictable outcome. Ignorance combined with anti-Americanism. That's good enough for the New World Order at this stage of subversion. In our social lives, they will begin to replace traditional institutions and organizations with tasked organizations, non-organic organizations such as Black Lives Matter, Antifa, the feminist movement, LGBTQ, to name a few. They will put in artificial, controlled bodies, taking away responsibility of the people to stand up for anything. Social workers will become a government-run and have become a government-run and funded job, where the workers aren't caring for the children as much as just working to get a paycheck. In fact, CPS and the foster system are known to aid in human trafficking, and they frequently look the other way or personally get involved with trafficking themselves. And very briefly on population distribution, urbanization and delandization, the taking away of private land, is the greatest threat to American nationhood. Why? Because the poor farmer is often a greater patriot than an affluent dweller of a large congested American city. Communists know this very well. In fact, the New World Order keeps a very tight control over the size of their cities by the system of police registration of residents, and they know perfectly well that the farmer will fight an invader until the last bullet on his land. Underprivileged or urbanized masses, on the other hand, may feel like meeting an invader with flowers and red banners. Alienation of people from privately owned land is one of the very important methods of demoralization. And now we see administrations begin to implement artificial bodies who nobody ever elected and most people don't even like them. For instance, the media. Who elected these people like Anderson Cooper, Don Lemon, Chris Cuomo, and many more like them? How come they have almost monopolistic power on minds, literally raping minds? How do they have the nerve to decide what is good and what is bad about the president that we, the people, elected? Who the hell are these characters? They don't have to be an excellent journalist anymore, just a mediocre one. Because, hell, they're getting their 4 a.m. memo from the CIA informant and can't think for themselves to save their own lives. There's no competition. They even believe they are VIP, and they are nothing more than useful idiots being programmed to deliver an agenda, which they will ultimately be removed once it is finished and they are no longer needed. Looking at Law and Order, notice how more and more in the last several years, law enforcement in movies has been made to look like fumbling idiots, angry abusers of power, psychotic or paranoid. And then have you noticed how often the bad guys are being made to look good? They are bad guys and they sell drugs or do drugs or kill people, but they're nice guys. And now in many shows and movies, demons and the devil are good guys. Witches and warlocks are good guys. All these negative images and satanic images are being made to look good and positive. And they're all nice guys. And in the meantime, we are being made to hate and distrust the very people who are real and who actually, for the most part, do protect us. This is the boiling frog syndrome, the slow substitution of basic moral values. In the area of labor relations, they destroy the links of viable bargaining between employer and employee. What I want you to think about is this. What sort of morality does it take to make a medical nurse or doctor or whoever who might be in a union leave sick and dying patients in hospital beds and walk out to strike for $1 more, $2 more, fine, $5 more? What makes unionized electricians leave a city without power in the middle of a severe winter storm and let children in underprivileged slums freeze to death? How desperate for money must a unionized truck driver be to shoot to death a strike-breaking colleague, father of 5? Surely each individual American who commits these outrageously, very amoral acts is not that cruel and egocentric. And let's face it, not that broke. So why? The answer is ideological demoralization. The bargaining process in American labor in many instances is no longer motivated by the desire to improve working conditions and wages. In many cases, it is not bargaining at all. It's blackmail, and in the process of the unlimited growth of union power, the American worker loses the only relevant and real freedom he has in this country, the freedom to choose to work or not to work, and for how much. If an individual prefers to work for lower pay, and it must be his free individual choice, he is often no longer able to do so. I have just mentioned what happens to strikebreakers in America. Stage 2, destabilization. The goal is to destabilize all accepted organizations. This process is one that may take 2 to 5 years. Irresponsible politicians who hide under the guise of caretakers and those who would want to protect us and provide security begin to concentrate the attention of the nation on short-term solutions and quote-unquote improvements. Such politicians avoid the moment of truth when the nation will have to pay a much higher price to bring the nation back into stabilization and restoring the moral fiber. And I'll be speaking more on what I mean by that in just a moment. Demoralized masses start to grab for the easiest shortcut solution, which apparently socialism seems to become their best option. And we're seeing that now. Traditional national institutions no longer appear efficient. They are gradually replaced by citizens' committees and boards, which acquire more and more power. These bodies are more and more responsive to mobocracy and the rule of the crowd of radicalized consumers. At the same time, the bargaining process yields to the principle of planned economy and centralization. With the final destruction of the free bargaining process, economic powers move into the hands of globalists, which function with mega monopolies and monopolized labor unions. The division of powers no longer operated by the judicial, legislative, and executive lines, but instead replaced by bureaucracy in government, labor, and business. No more compromise becomes the motto for everyone. Fight. Teachers and students, fight. Laborers and employers, fight. Law and order and shootings. Blacks and police, fight. Media puts themselves in purposeful opposition to the people in general at large. And now, the sleepers are put into place. The programmed or trained individuals are activated that have been sleeping for 15 to 20 years. Group leaders, teachers, homosexual activists, all becoming political with demands that clash with the norm. Division and antagonism is pushed on everyone, and it isn't just the left people. The sleepers become our leaders. They begin to receive money for foundations, whatever rights people are fighting for, because the public wants to be sympathetic. Non-elected committees sprout up all over, Black Lives Matter, LGBT, Antifa, etc. When this is all successful, and we are seeing that it certainly has been, we move into stage 3, crisis. This phase takes only about 2 to 6 months. At this stage, all your activists and leaders spring into action, seizing power as quickly and ruthlessly as possible. The majority of Americans would be totally confused and may even welcome some of these quote-unquote strong leaders. Chances are these leaders will be elected and give emergency powers, bringing a forceful change of the U.S. system, which may be accomplished through civil war or by military force and invasion. There will be a reduction of the private sector of the economy to the bare minimum, redistribution of wealth, and a massive propaganda campaign by the newly fraudulently elected government to explain and justify the reforms coming. No concentration camps and executions yet. That will come later in the next stage called normalization. Any normal nation would definitely resist such a progressive change. Not long after the takeover, there will arise pockets of resistance who will physically resist the new system. Some will take arms and flee to the mountains, which is my plan. And reforms by the new government, aka the New World Order, may create split loyalties amongst law enforcement and render much of the population totally defenseless. In order to avoid bloodshed, the subverter will move into normalization. The country will be brought by force into a normal state of socialism, namely subjugation. Had Hillary Clinton been elected, we would have seen this already. Friendly soldiers in the streets of our cities working with American soldiers and the new police force to restore law and order. Soon we would find our American do-gooders, that is the sleepers, the liberals, the activists, LGBTQ, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, professors, Marxists, etc., who were working so hard to bring progress to their own country would find themselves in prisons, concentration camps, and many would be executed. Why? Because the new rulers need stabilization to take advantage of the victory. The New World Order liberators no longer have use for the useful idiots that they used to take over this nation. No more revolutions, no more liberations, no more resistance. We will have normalcy and compliance by force. The press will censor itself and no longer criticize the state as the new morality sets in. In fact, the press has already been doing this now and has been for over 3 decades. We would now be enjoying the state of social normalization being currently enjoyed by the Venezuelans. Back to the title of this whole talk, that legislating equality will destroy a free nation. This image this image totally explains what I'm talking about. There's a barrier coming in that is instilling the need for this equality, but as we can see, equality doesn't fix the problem. Equity could fix the problem a little bit, but it's the barrier or the people that are trying to bring in equality, because we just are not all equal. We are not. We cannot decide that we are all equal just because we want that to be. And when a system or government or globalists come in and want to make us all equal and legislate equality, that is when they're actually trying to subvert us and take our government down, our legal rights down. They're trying to take away our freedom, they're trying to take away our liberty, and they're trying to subvert us into a new regime and a new power, which is the New World Order currently. And here I will directly quote Yuri Bezmenov when he says, when Americans think it will never happen here. What if it does happen here? Why take chances? What are the solutions? There are different solutions for different stages of subversion. If a nation has enough common sense to stop subversion at the very beginning of the demoralization stage, you may never need the painful and drastic solutions needed to deal with the crisis stage. The most general solution I can offer for the whole process of subversion is to stop aiding the subverter. You are still living in a free society, and you are able to force your elected politicians to change their policies toward the communist world if you so choose. But if you personally do not see anything wrong in dealing with the communists and helping them in their global expansion, I feel that you should begin learning more about the reality of the communist and socialist situation, not from your monopolized media, but from the independent media and press who have no vested interest in making out the Soviet Union to be the good guys, and from people like myself who have experienced communism firsthand for many years. There are numerous American patriotic groups and organizations who are well informed and who already have many solutions to combat the damage done by ideological subversion, some of which are as good or even better than mine. Seek these groups, join them, and do something. And people, I want you to know this information is not meant to, nor should it frighten you. This is a warning to help you, to help me, to help our families and our children and our children's children, never to allow this to happen to them and to us. We have a choice. to sit back and hide, trying not to be a target, or we have the choice to think freely and know the truth and share the truth with anyone who has ears to hear and eyes to see. Personally, I think we are responsible to take up this cause, and we are responsible to put an end to the socialist agenda. I will not cower in fear only to be found by the state and have my children raped and murdered in front of me. I will speak truth. I will continue to warn people, and I will not surrender. Where we go one, we go all. Patriots united we stand. God bless you all, and thank you. If you're still here, thank you. A little added bonus I want to give you that Yuri Bezmenov also said. He said that no one will die for 2 + 2 = 4. We know that 2 + 2 = 4 is truth. We know it's fact, but nobody dies for that. But what they will die for, and gladly, is their faith and their belief in God. Don't let anyone take that from you. God bless and Godspeed.